The job of the Supreme Court is to interpret the meaning of a law, to decide whether a law is relevant to a particular set of facts or to rule on how a law should be applied. In my case, it decided to do nothing despite glaring abuse of law by the state of Georgia and its executive repeatedly, inclusive of a ruling made by the US Supreme Court in 2015. If your head is spinning, please sit down. If you're feeling nauseated, it's okay. You can throw up. You've been holding it down for far too long. Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution establishes the jurisdiction, meaning the legal ability to hear a case, of the Supreme Court. The court has original jurisdiction. A case is tried before the court over certain cases, e.g., suits between two or more states and/or cases involving ambassadors and other public ministers. The court has appellate jurisdiction. The court can hear the case on appeal on almost any other case that involves a point of constitutional and or federal law. You are going to read a plethora of the same in the documents that are on griftersnet.com. Read them. They're legal documents. They're court documents. I'm not making this up. Each and every judge chose to poop on the Constitution and written law. Jurisprudence and ethics, they were nowhere to be seen. You will see more decency in a $5 hooker reeking with STDs and STIs than you will see with the executive. And just for those who don't know what executive means, it means your legislature, your Supreme Court, and your governor's office. And Georgia governor is probably the most powerful of all among the 50 states. And probably the most corrupt as well. Just to add to the facts, the Vatican is the head of the largest and most centralized religious organizations in the world. The United States executive and the Vatican have historically acted with unconscionable impunity and without fear of culpability for centuries, while granting themselves absolution with nothing for the faithful. At least the priests who came to me for counseling, and almost each and every one broke down. They cried their hearts out, for it turned out they were the victims of sexual abuse themselves, and it went into continuum because nobody was held accountable. But they were told by their bishops that they could grant themselves absolution. That's how the Vatican dealt with it. So, in the United States, who told our executive that they could grant themselves absolution, especially the judiciary? Just look at what the hell is going on in the US Supreme Court. You could not make jokes better if you were taking the best of THC or drinking the best Scotch liquor that could be found anywhere on the planet. There's a pantomime for all to watch, the US Supreme Court. Have you any idea what the lower courts are doing? You think the innocent who are leaving the prison after 48 years of imprisonment, they were an anomaly? The European Court of Human Rights ruled that the US penal system is not fit for human consumption. No more extraditions to the United States. And thereafter, the law departments of universities like Vanderbilt, they wrote, European Court of Human Rights has no right to treat or to take into consideration the rights of a criminal who hasn't been tried yet. And I can read you much more serious statements that are written in research papers, law research papers by eminent schools of law like the Vanderbilt. Vulgarity has no boundaries here. Like one of them said, having sex with a child is to show a child that we love them. And he was the darling of Trump's electioneering campaign. Find his own name. I'll give you a hint. It's Greek. But he's born and bred British. I cannot do everything for you. You have to do some of the legwork for yourself. Just to make matters worse, here's a lesson from history. The old vocation of being the village idiot appears to pre-qualify a person as a prospective member of a US state bar, and at times even worse, a judge. The village idiot is mentioned in birth certificates of British citizens from centuries gone by. I'm not making this up. It was stated as a vocation, V-O-C-A-T-I-O-N, something a person does for a living. Now they call judges. We even have governors now, governors of state, who will qualify for a village idiot. Gold star, 5 stars. We elect them. They do not sit there by choice. We elect them. So, let's have a good look in the mirror. Let's have a look at ourselves. What the hell have we become? The United States is the largest Catholic country in the world, and a superpower, and a self-declared world policeman. May God have mercy on our pathetic, miserly souls. That is if permission is granted by the US executive. After all, the US Constitution is a worthless piece of paper. And have a good look at the US history. It repeatedly validates my said statement. A worthless piece of paper. Restitution, reparation, my ass. In Old English and English vernacular, Constitution is referred to as movement of the bowel, i.e., the English referred to is when you go for poo-poos, the act of defecation. Poetic vindication, maybe, but definitely not legal. I don't care what arguments you make. Constitution was never meant to relate to one's bowel movement. I want to make one thing very clear from the onset. I want my life back. And I want the world to know the egregious culture of corruption, bigotry, and depravity marketed as the good old South, especially in the state of Georgia. Charges conferred are racketeering and abuse of oath of office, inter alia, others to follow. I am a US citizen who has never committed a crime or been found guilty of even a misdemeanor. And yet I am guilty and have been treated worse than the worst of criminals by all and sundry, black and white. As President Trump shouted from the rooftops, it is a privilege to be allowed to be living in the US. Not true, says I. Not true. And what President Trump is going through now? He's hurling abuse at all and sundry, no matter who they are. I wonder if he's going to consider it a privilege when he bends down to pick up a bar of soap in a state or federal prison. Blacks and whites, inclusive of the browns and all other shades, have denied me help, and all have treated me with contempt, inclusive of Christians, Jews, and Muslims, to name but a few. My crime? I have done nothing wrong. But I chose to challenge inherent and the rotten to the court system, especially our legal system and the executive. For that, one must pay the price. Or, as one senior assistant attorney general said, you gonna fight the state? And the other one said, you gonna take on the element? The element, in my limited intellect, refers to the powers that be, the executive, and the hands up the ass of the executive who pull the strings, the paymasters, the super PACs, to name but a few. I can assure you, as written proof will be provided, is provided, just start reading on griftersnet.com. Let me spell it for you. GRIFTERSNET, griftersnet.com. Court documents. Yes, court documents. Read them. And then other documents including communication, affidavits, all will be provided. For now, just to make life easier, I'm trying not to complicate matters. The documents state officials did Houdini with I cannot produce. They made them disappear. But the evidence is still overwhelming. The licensing board of Georgia, with Mr. Brig Zimmerman at its helm, the senior assistant attorney general confided, in the presence of his colleague, the assistant attorney general, that anybody listening to me at the deposition would know that Mr. Zimmerman was lying through his teeth. He's been appointed the chief executive of the licensing boards now in the state of Georgia. Irony? Payoff? Who knows? He has a job. I don't. He made all documents disappear. There's no evidence of any communication or record of the meetings that I had with the licensing board, one lasting close to an hour. I have exhausted the US legal system all the way to the US Supreme Court. They broke their own laws and urinated and defecated on my constitutional rights while also denying my pleadings for a hearing. By now, even the sewer rats are aware that the US Supreme Court is answerable to no one and does not possess even a code of ethics. Lately, they have come up with some infantile garbage as a code of self-indulgence rather than a code of honor and or accountability. Hence, I'm bemused, as there are no charges ever filed against me, yet I am guilty. Or so I have been made to feel. Hence, I must be guilty. So says the good old US of A, the great policeman of the world. Why must anybody believe me? Hence, I must be guilty. That'll be a cold day in hell when I accept that statement. I am guilty of being nothing but a law-abiding, decent human being. And I can provide plenty of people who can stand up and vouch for me. Can you?